You know, sometimes it can be really difficult to understand if your family is estranged. It takes a lot of courage to really delve into the foundation of who your family really is. You may find some things about your family that you just don't like, or you may find hidden secrets that have a foundation of intergenerational trauma. It's really hard to be the person in your family who has an awakened mindset that says, look, your family is unhealthy, it's dysfunctional, and you have to figure out what's going on. Have you ever wondered why your relationships within your family have been so detached and separated? Have you ever wondered, what kind of relationship is this that we are in, even as family members? Well, in today's video, I'm going to highlight the 13 signs that your family is estranged. Sometimes families can be in a mode of estrangement and not even know it. And one of the reasons why is because there aren't really any clear signs to identify what estrangement actually is, A lot of people believe estrangement has a lot to do with walking away and telling a person, I'm never coming back. But estrangement can actually be something that you're experiencing without anybody saying anything. So let's jump into this topic. Before we jump in, let me briefly introduce myself in case you are new to the channel. My name is Tamara. I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. Who wants to believe that they are estranged from family members in their family, right? That's just not something that a lot of people want to accept, process, think about, accept. If I haven't already said that, I think that, processing where your family is in terms of communication is something that requires courage. It requires a stable identity in oneself. And it also requires healing of the wounds that you have because of the trauma that you have experienced in your relationships within your family. If you have an identity, it makes it a little easier to look at your estranged family and say, you know what? Okay, we're not talking. We're not connected. It's okay. I understand that you have challenges. I understand that we don't get along. I understand you don't want to talk to me. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going to take that personally. I'm not going to assume any ill responsibility. I'm going to be okay with that. It takes a lot of identity and internal strength to be able to do that. And a lot of us don't have that, right? It requires, some reflection and some introspection, right? To get to that point of healing and maturity, it also requires an understanding of what family really is. We have to kind of undo and unwire what we think family is in our culture, within our families, and even within our country. Right? There's a lot of cultural and social meaning behind the word family. And until we learn to unravel how we have been taught to see family, we're going to feel stuck. We're going to feel abused and probably even traumatized, right? Because we're not walking away from the things that we know deep down are harmful. So, let me go through some of the things that might help you identify that your family is actually estranged. So the first thing I think that's very obvious for a lot of us that we can kind of identify as a sign that we're estranged is you haven't spoken in a while. I think verbal communication and really connecting even over text and over Facebook chats or Snapchat or Instagram, however you communicate, not connecting with that person for long periods of time is one major sign that you are estranged. We are human beings that need connection. We are human beings that need to be interconnected most of the time. And when you don't make that connection with somebody within your family, and it's been a very long time, you actually lose touch with who you are and with who they are. My mother is a firm believer that we change as human beings every single day. And if you haven't spoken to someone for a long period of time, then you don't know how they're evolving. You don't know how they're changing. You've actually emotionally and psychologically become more distant than maybe you realize. And so it's going to be hard to come back around after a month, a year, 3 months, maybe 16 years of not knowing your family and getting close again. There's a huge chance that you really don't know your family like you thought you did. Okay, so that's the number one sign of estrangement. Number two is the parent-child system is broken down. That parent-child relationship is really important. And if you haven't developed it over time and you've been detached for a long period of time, it's really easy for that relationship to break apart. That system, the parent-child system, needs to be built and rebuilt over time. As the child evolves, as the parent evolves, there should be a connection. And I'm not talking about a child, I'm talking about an adult child, just for clarification. That relationship has to be evolved over time. Things need to be, built into that relationship, right? Connection within that parent-adult-child relationship is important. And when that is broken down, estrangement is likely to have occurred. The next thing is unresolved feelings of hurt, anger, and resentment. When you are standing off from your family because you've been hurt, you've been traumatized, or you're angry, it's really easy to lose that emotional and psychological connection with your family. So consider that relationship one of estrangement. If you have gotten into a conflict with someone, or you have decided to disappear, and you have all these internal feelings that you haven't worked with, and you haven't communicated with your family for a long period of time, your family is estranged. It's one thing to walk away and then boomerang back to regain that connection, but it's another thing to be hurt and angry, house those feelings inside, internalize them, and then walk away and never return, or walk away and return 25 years later. That's family estrangement. You're not just separated temporarily, you're estranged. The next thing that a lot of people fail to realize as estrangement is the intense power struggle between you and the family. When there's an intense family struggle and power struggle between morals, values, boundaries, education, rules, that can really cause family estrangement. Like I talked about in some of my other videos, family really does shape who you are, but sometimes your family can break down who you are. And so therefore, you can see jealousy and envy and power struggles and triangulation and manipulation come out of the woodwork with family members, right? That you really don't know that well, or you thought you knew. The relationship between you and your family is so toxic and unhealthy that it creates this estrangement emotionally and psychologically. You may decide based on that to walk away and never re-engage with your family, or you may re-engage with your family at a minimum, right? Texting, Facebook, Instagram. The next thing is a misalignment of values. If you feel like your values and your ethics and your morals are misaligned with your family, you're likely to stay separate from them. And family estrangement can occur when you feel that who you are doesn't mesh with your family. You're not going to want to develop a future with your family. You're not going to want to foster a positive and healthy relationship with your family. So that's going to cause family estrangement. Walking away, creating your own life, and leaving your family back there is family estrangement, to say the least. Okay, the next thing is triangulation that's constant or chronic. It's really hard to be entwined with family members who are triangulators and manipulators and troublemakers. And, sorry guys, I'm so sorry about that. It's really easy to feel the desire to want to walk away and never return. You don't want to be a part of a situation where you are constantly abused, constantly taken advantage of. And so you may walk away and never return. That is family estrangement. Also, if you walk away from the triangle within your family and you kind of hold your family off, and you text with them, or you email with them, or you call only on holidays, that's still family estrangement. Trying to maintain a communication from a distance isn't enough to build bonds and isn't enough to maintain a strong connection. The next thing is feeling this internal absence when you communicate with your family. A family should feel almost like a lock and a key when you communicate. You know what I mean? You should feel like, oh my, that's the key, I'm the lock, and we're back together and this is great. If you feel like you guys are so separated and detached that there's no foundation to work from, there's no connection, there's no interconnection, then that's an issue. And that means you're emotionally and psychologically detached. You may also feel like that with your parents, right? Your mom, your dad, your grandparents even. There's something missing. And it's like this huge wall between you, right? This is you, this is your parent, and there's this huge wall in the middle. And it's making it really hard to connect emotionally and psychologically, even when you are sitting in the very same room. Another thing that I have seen is, too much lost time. I have a hard time as a therapist believing that you could be estranged for 50 years, 45 years, 30 years, 25 years, and still feel like this. There are some situations where you can, I'm sure, such as, in cases where there's foster care or adoption and a child finds their long lost mother and they feel like, I finally found the thing that makes me happy. I think there are some situations where you can be detached and come back together and feel really interconnected. But if you walked away because of some pain, some trauma, some anger, some resentment, some wrongdoing to you or toward you, it's a really hard thing to try to come back together and click. You know what I mean? Too much lost time between you and your family and between that family member can really create a distance that makes it hard for you to re-engage, to build on top of what you once had, right? To be interconnected with that person or that family member all over again. I actually had a client that said that to me once. She says, oh my God, I'm finally realizing that my family is estranged and I don't know how it happened. What she failed to realize is that all that lost time between she and her family members, it had to be about 40 years of separation. It really put them in opposition to each other and they became like long lost strangers as opposed to family members who once knew each other and are coming back together. I think sometimes when, we are separated from our family and we come back together and, we find it really hard to relate to that person because they see us in the lens of who they saw us as in the past. Does that make sense, guys? That family member sees us through the lens of who they once knew us to be. And that makes it really hard to come back together. It makes it really hard to identify, the connection between you and that family member because they don't know who you are now. They are seeing you through the lens of who you used to be. And so when that happens, you know that your family has been estranged because there's no identification of who you are now. They don't know you at all. You're complete strangers. They see you through the lens of who you used to be. That's family estrangement. I don't know who you are now. I don't know how life has changed you. I don't know how your trauma has changed you. I don't know how you believe in things. I don't know what your values are. All of that. But I do remember who you used to be. That is family estrangement. They have no foundation to help them understand who you are now. Let me know in the comment section below if this is something that you have dealt with. We're going to continue to focus on families as we go into the holiday season. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.